Words. Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, pilot in the Air National Guard, friend of the show, joins us now. Congressman, nice to see you, sir. Happy end of 2016.
You too.
All right.
Thanks, you too.
As we go forward on this, it was interesting. Earlier in the show, we played a soundbite from Eric Schultz, the deputy press secretary at the White House, who gave interviews yesterday. And he said, quote, the reason we're doing this is because this is outside the norms of diplomatic behavior by the Russians. I've heard stronger words from teachers who weren't happy with second graders.
Yeah, I mean, that's typical of this administration. You look at, Russia's basically behind the bombing of a UN aid convoy in Syria, and not much of a peep out of the administration. They use precision-guided munitions to bomb innocents in Aleppo, Syria. You don't hear much out of the administration. And then, with this, and I think this is a good beginning to the sanctions on Russia, but it's kind of done in a way that's, again, outside of diplomatic norms. I think the big thing to keep in mind here, there are some that say that Donald Trump is president because of the Russian hacking. That's absolutely not true. There are some that say the Russian hacking never happened. That's not true either. The fact is, in Congress and Americans, we need to find out exactly what happened to defend our Constitution, which we are sworn to defend and protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. As a military pilot and as a congressman, we need to figure out how to maintain the integrity of our election system. And when people try to mess with that, an attempt or anything like that, there needs to be pretty swift punishment.
Is it bigger, though, than simply messing with our election system? This seems to be sort of a systematic threat by the Russians, more than against elections, but sort of against the United States, against our prestige around the world, saying that we can't participate in peace talks in Syria, saying that we're going to bomb whoever we want inside Syria, bombing some of the people that we've already trained inside Syria.
Yeah, well, look, they're in eastern Ukraine right now, and we still won't give offensive weapons to the Ukrainians. They still occupy part of Georgia. They're messing with the Baltics. Yes, I mean, this is Russia advancing until they hit a real red line, not a fake red line, and they haven't hit that yet. So I think, the big thing to keep in mind is I personally don't think the Russians...
So a real red line, obviously we know that President Obama has drawn a lot of red lines, and they haven't met very much. President-elect Trump seems to be not really interested in drawing a red line with the Russians. He seems much more interested in making friends with them. Is that going to work?
Well, I think and hope that changes. I mean, it's one thing to say we want to engage the Russians and have conversations.
You think and hope that Mr. Trump's policies change?
I do. Well, it's one thing to say, we want a re-engagement. That's fine. President George W. Bush did it. Barack Obama did it. Barack Obama did it to great failure. So it's one thing to say we want to kind of have a fresh look at this. But it's another thing to say we still have to maintain America's role in the world. And the Russians have been advancing while we're retreating. The big thing to keep in mind with this wasn't, I don't necessarily think, an attempt to make Trump president by the Russians, but I think it's an attempt to undermine the faith of the Constitution. The Constitution is just a paper document until people agree, like we all do, that we're going to abide by those principles. And if you undermine the idea that we can elect people who we want to elect, that's when you begin to erode the faith in the Constitution. So that's why defending our election system is so important, not relitigating the but to say we have to defend our Constitution.
Do you have faith in President-elect Trump to restore that faith in the Constitution, to do what's necessary with Russia and perhaps the Chinese as well, to make it clear that this is not acceptable behavior and there are consequences?
Yeah, two of the three I do. The Constitution and bringing faith back into it, I do. China, he's been very aggressive on, I agree. The question mark is Russia, and I hope that once he's sworn in and gets, all the briefings that a president gets and understands that, each president in the past has tried to re-engage.
He tells us all the time that he's gotten all the briefings that a president does, that he's very smart, he doesn't need to get them every day, he understands everything, and still he seems to say, hey, we should make friends with Vladimir Putin. What gives you confidence that that's going to change?
Well, I have hope. I guess I'm trying to be optimistic about it. Okay. I think if he continues down what he's saying, I think there's going to be trouble with fighting Congress on that. We understand. I've been in this job for 6 years, and all along we've seen the Russians advance and push America out of areas, kill innocent people and everything else. I'm hoping that changes. Again, it's okay to say we want to re-engage the Russians and have talks. That's great. But it's another thing entirely to say, hey, they're really our friends, they're really the great protector. That's not the case at all. And I hope some of his words change, but I think he's going to be a fantastic president on a lot of fronts.
All right. Well, we'll have you come back and talk about not only that, but also the intelligence briefings that you all are going to get in terms of exactly what this administration has on the Russian hacking. Congressman, Happy New Year to you and yours. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you, sir.
You bet. You too. See ya.